Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, your sanctuary with retreat experts, where we spill the tea on retreat success. Here we dive into crafting transformational guest experiences, talk about how to avoid pitfalls, and unlock marketing secrets. Whether you're a seasoned guru or a budding enthusiast, we've got the inside scoop for you. Join us as we learn how to flourish in this magical world of retreats. Hey guys, welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, formerly the Happy Hour Podcast. I am so excited about my guest that I have on the show today, and I'm going to let her tell you all about herself because I think I will demolish it and not do it right if I try to do it myself. But welcome, Dr. Robyn McKay, to the show.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for having me. When I saw that you're doing this really wonderful podcast for retreat leaders, my heart opened wide. So thank you for inviting me on the show. I have a PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Kansas. And for the last about 11 years or so, 11 years ago, I actually stepped away from my academic position. I was a university psychologist at Arizona State. And I walked away from that to follow my entrepreneurial dreams of creating an international coaching and consulting business, specifically focused on spiritual advising for high achieving leaders in tech, in healthcare, in entrepreneurship, and so on. And a lot of them, of course, are emotionally intelligent, intuitive, and so on. And one of the things they all have in common is they love to go on retreats. And so do I. And I think you probably do too. So I was excited to be able to come in and talk to you about my perspective on retreats. I've been doing them for many, many years, both one-on-one in kind of a VIP day situation, but then also in team builds with our horses out here at the farm in Kansas, and just group retreats as well for women leaders in particular. So, and some of my favorite places to do that in the last few years have been in Arizona, both in Scottsdale, which, as you know, is kind of the luxury resort area, and of course in one of my most sacred places on the planet, which is Sedona. So
I love that.
I can't wait to dive in and see what we're going to talk about today.
I love that. By the way, one of my favorite ranches to go to is in Tucson, Arizona. I actually attended a retreat there myself. It was a kind of teach the teacher retreat where we were learning how to better communicate with the horses. Because as you know, I have a herd of horses too, and we use them in our consumer work. So when we do retreats ourselves, there's an opportunity for guests to add on some equine work. That location just speaks to me. I don't know if you've ever heard of White Stallion Ranch in Tucson.
No, I haven't at all. But I had my first equine experience at Miraval Spa in Tucson years
cool.
ago.
Yeah. So, and one of my good friends who does some equine work here at the ranch, she does the Miraval Equine program here in Austin.
Oh, okay.
And so she comes to the ranch and does, I know, it's all connected, but White Stallion Ranch, it's just an awesome place. It's family owned and operated. It's a very traditional dude ranch, but they treat their horses in that natural horsemanship way that I'm looking for when I work with horses anywhere. And so they're just a really great place. So, hey, retreat leaders, are your retreats the hidden gems of the travel world just waiting to be discovered? Well, it's time to shine a spotlight on them. Introducing the ultimate guide you've been waiting for, our free guide, Top 11 Tips for Building an Email List. For you, the retreat leaders. Imagine an email list packed with eager attendees, hanging on to your every word and ready to book at the click of a button. We share the blueprint to creating a list that sells. Don't miss out on the action. Learn how to connect deeply with your audience, boost your bookings, and create a buzz that fills every retreat. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, these 11 tips are your secret weapon to success. Visit retreatleaderlistbuilding.com now to grab your free copy and start building an email list that sells out your retreats. I'm so excited. I love what you do. And I talked to Robyn right before we started recording and said, who knows where this is going to go? I actually thought we weren't going to talk about this today, but since you brought it up and I really just feel like it's relevant to the rest of what I want to talk about, talk to me about the psychology of retreats. I mean, obviously that was your field. That's your, education, your experience, and then you're bringing it into the retreat format. So talk to me about that.
Well, I want to, because one of the things that gets confusing, I think, for retreat leaders and for retreat participants is what happens after you reintegrate into your life. Because as you know, when you go on retreat, you're at a place out of time and out of space. It's very different. It's like a little bubble, a little cocoon that you're in. And then there is a reintegration process on the other side. And I think that we all do an okay job of understanding that, of course, there's going to be reintegration time and so on. But this is something that I learned many, many years ago as a psychology student. After I had done a couple of my own retreats, I wanted to understand what's going on with the transformation process. Because, there's it's called like the conference high or the retreat high when you come in after the retreat and you're changed and you're transformed. And then, slowly over the course of a week or 2 weeks after you get back from the retreat, things kind of, I will say in nerdy science language, regress to the mean, but things kind of get back to normal unless they don't. And so I wanted to know what's the difference between things going back to normal unless they don't. So there was this theory of change. It's called Cognitive Experiential Self Theory. And if you don't mind, I will just do a little psychology lecture on this because This is very important. So in Cognitive Experiential Self Theory, what ends up happening is that the first thing is that we all have a schema. We all have a way of viewing the world. But just as by nature of living our lives and going through our lives and so on, we have this way of understanding how the world works, how people work, etc. And then what happens in cognitive experiential self theory is that when we have a very, very different experience from our normal lives, when we go on retreat, or it could even be something as simple as going to a different worship service with a different group of people that you have never met before, something like that, but something very, very significantly different from your everyday life. You experience that. And people end up doing a couple of things with those different experiences. And we'll just go with the retreat experience. So you go on retreat. When I take people to Sedona and they hike in Boynton Canyon, which is, in my understanding, the birthplace of humanity. It's a very holy place for me to be and to take my clients with me. When we go there, we have these expansive experiences. They meet themselves in a new way. They even begin to integrate those new experiences in a way that changes how they view the world, changes how they view themselves, how they view their role in the world, and so on, how they view other people. And then within the bubble, that's fine. And then according to this theory, what happens at some point is that we look at this experience and we say, oh my gosh, this completely changed me. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with it.
God.
And when we don't know what to do with something like a peak experience, like being on a retreat, we come home out of it and we say, well, I think I will just pretend that that was a point out of time and I will go back to my ordinary life. So in other words, rather than integrating it into our personal schemas, how we view the world, how we view other people, et cetera, and allowing the retreat to continue its work on us, we say, I'm going to close the door on that and go back to normal. And oftentimes what I have found is that it's not just us that makes that decision, it's the people around us as well. Because, when you come back from a retreat and you're flying high and you've had these unique experiences and the people in your life are like, who are you? And what did you do with my wife, my husband, so on? We say, well, that's true. Maybe I should just go back to the way things were.
Wow.
So that is one of the things that we have to look at when we're understanding how people change in retreats and why sometimes those peak experiences begin to feel very, very far off from our lives as we move back into the normal world. The other thing that we can do, and this requires guidance, doesn't it? Because usually, if the retreat leader is aware of this process, then we can just call it out and say, this is what is likely you're going to experience, and you have some choices to make. And another choice that you can make is to begin integrating your perspective into the way that you're viewing the world.
And how does that look like in real world, real time?
Yes.
How would that look?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for bringing this into the practical because that's very important. So one of the things that I do educationally is I just teach that first of all, because we have to understand the concept of it first, or the theory. And then the practical application of that can be a couple of things. One, I think it's a choice. It's a decision point that we make consciously to say, I'm going to let this count. I'm going to let this experience count for my perspective on the world. I'm going to let myself integrate these experiences and allow myself to be changed by it. So one is making the decision to allow yourself to be changed by it. Another is to continue to have the conversations and maintain the connections with the people in the retreat. And that is why when I talk about what happens after the retreat in terms of sales and inviting people deeper into your world as a retreat leader, that's one of the practical things that we can do is have a soft spot for them to land on the other side of the retreat so that they can continue the work that they began in the retreat. Because you and I both know when we go on, have an extraordinary experience, and then if there's nothing on the other side of that, it is way more easy to move back into everyday life. Sort of like at the beginning of a new year when everybody goes to the gym for about 6 weeks and then tapers off and sort of goes back to the way things were before the new year started.
I love this so much because I know a lot of hosts have so many gifts to offer, and it's almost like you get to sprinkle it in your retreat. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have an intensive, maybe you have a 2-week, 3-week, month-long retreat. Those are definitely out there. They're usually learning intensives, but maybe you have an intensive. However, that's exactly what happens is the high lasts for anywhere, and what I've noticed, 24, maybe even 48 hours. It could even go 3 days, post-retreat. They're like on that, what did you call it? Experiential learning cycle?
Well, the theory is called Cognitive Experiential Learning or Cognitive Experiential Learning Theory. So the way that we integrate our experiences into our everyday lives.
Right. And so they're not quite making them into neural pathways yet. Is that right?
Right. Well, I will say that. Yeah, I think that there's deeper integration that has to happen both emotionally, psychologically, and also neurologically as we allow these experiences to change us for the good and for the long term.
That's what I was thinking. So when you were saying these things, so like on my retreats that I host, they used to be more of a healing retreat. My background used to also be, I was a mental health therapist. And so they were kind of very healing based, worked on anxiety, worked on stress. And then over the last 10 years, they've kind of flipped the script a little bit. I don't have my practice anymore. I don't want to do mental health work anymore. And so they're more of like a girls' weekend with a sprinkle of stress reduction in there. And so just tips and tools on how to reduce your stress, but it's really just a reset, a reboot. However, that sprinkle even in there of stress reduction, every single female lead is going, oh, that's such a great tool. They've picked up one tool out of the many that were offered that they could incorporate. But I'll be honest with you, I do nothing once they leave. I mean, I have email and I send them actually cards and I do a couple little things. But as far as solidifying, because in my mind, what I'm hearing is it's like I'm starting a tiny little neural pathway, like a little tiny one. And then I do nothing to make it like a permanent, engraved, this is a part of their life. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, exactly. And it's not our fault. I will say it's not that you will think it's your fault, but sometimes we think, well, how am I responsible for this? And to make a business case for this from a retreat leadership perspective, it is always, in my mind, I always think about the retreat as a bridge. So it's not a discrete, well, it is discrete in that, people will come for a weekend or whatever it is. But then we have to also ask as a responsible business person and as a responsible leader, what's on the other side of that? Now, not everybody is going to want to cross over the bridge. There are some people who are going to say, you know what, I think I got it. I'll do this on my own. Things will be good. But there are inevitably, I will say, up to maybe even 75% of the retreat participants who will say, you know what, I want something else. And I don't know what this is. I made this mistake early on in my work. I was still working as a psychologist. I had started my coaching business. I was offering VIP days. I will call them private intensives. I think I like that better than VIP, and I offered this VIP intensive at a resort in Arizona to a woman. She flew in, she invested, I think at the time I was charging like $5,000 for the retreat and spent the whole day with her. And she was asking me questions. She was really ready for something else. And I kept on, this was my beginner mistake, I kept on referring back to the people who I had worked with myself when she was asking questions about what's next. I will say, well, when I worked with so-and-so, this is what happened. Well, I didn't have anything on the other side to offer her. I hadn't been coached in the way to say that I'm coaching now to say we must offer something. And what this person ended up doing is going on investing tens of thousands of dollars to work with the person who I had actually worked with.
Wow.
And she has since come back around, and we have worked off and on periodically over the years, of course. But for a business case and for a relationship case, I think it's our responsibility to have something on the other side, some kind of container that they can tune back into. Now, here's the thing, is that nobody likes to be sold to, first of all. And I have found this too, that when people are on retreat, I don't sell at the retreat.
Hey, it's Shannon here. I'm just popping in really quickly to ask a big favor. Would you pause the show and go review it for us? Please. Reviews really help us to be able to get more guests and more experts on the show to help you transform your retreats. So if you wouldn't mind pausing and leaving us a review, that would mean everything. And if you're not already subscribed, do that too. Okay, that's unique because you'll hear the opposite a lot of times is, do the offering at the retreat, try to grab. This is going to sound very salesy. And if it doesn't align with whoever's listening, then it just doesn't align. But the traditional, we'll call it model is sell it to them while they're high, right?
Yes. Well, that is, and then we have to go into, you're a mental health provider. I was a mental health provider. We have to go into the psychology of that as well. And I want people I might seed into the retreat, this is what I work with on my private clients after. I might be talking about those things. But in my experience, what I'll do with even retreats of up to 10 people, I will say, I will always book out after a private one-on-one time with them. Just build it into the retreat and say, as a bonus, one-on-one time after, where we will talk about integrations and next steps. So that then there is no pressure, because then we're also dealing with the social pressure of, oh, did you sign up for? And I think that the old way of doing business, and I will say kind of the bro marketing perspective, will be just what you said, get them while they're hot, get them while they're high. And that's a money grab, in my opinion. People may have different opinions than I do on that, of course, but that is my experience with it. And I know that the people who I work with know that I've got them on the other side of it. I'm in the business of supporting them in relation to what the work that they've already done in the retreat. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think there might even be a way to bridge the two, only in the sense that depending upon what your topic is, depending upon what your retreat format is, there may definitely be some people, because I have had this, where they ask you before the end of the retreat, do you offer something else? And then that's when you, in my opinion, you say, absolutely, here's what it is.
Yes.
And so I do think you can bridge both of them. Now, let me ask you this, though. So some people are just like, I don't have the capacity to do one-on-ones. I don't do it. That's one of the reasons why I closed my private practice. And I only do one-on-ones in the business capacity for retreat leaders. And I do those very minimal. It's like, here's a one-off, whatever. What's your thoughts on that then? If a retreat host, maybe this is their side business, maybe their primary business is something else. I don't know. But what's your thoughts on how else could they support that container they started if they don't have the capacity or the desire to do one-on-one work?
Yes, well, that's a great question. And I think that we can answer that with either a group format where people can step into, it's an invitation to step into. So it could be a mastermind situation, or I host executive roundtables with my private clients. So my approach personally in my business is a hybrid approach. So I'll still do privates because I will never get rid of privates. But to your point about capacity and also relationship with other people, having some kind of roundtable or group format where people can come back in, touch in, maybe if you're doing some kind of stress reduction stuff, continue the training there. But I think that central to it is paying attention to relationship. How are we creating community? How are we expanding community, maintaining community, to make a business case for it as well? In other words, I'm not going to do it for free. It is, it's a continued investment in themselves as well as in what they're wanting, what the goals that they started working on during the retreat.
Okay. Loving this so much. I could almost see for retreat leaders, I love the whole idea of a mastermind group because as you host more and more retreats, you can just continue to grow that mastermind versus trying to add more people to a personal calendar.
And then you've got recurring revenue in the business. And then the retreat leaders, in your case, if that's who your audience is and that's who your community is, then they're building a network, or I like to think about it as a big spider web of connections as well, for all kinds of really cool things to start coming out of that. So, and it could also be for something like you're doing a membership. Well, you like to join the membership, and you have it set up in that way so that they benefit from the relationships. I also think it's very important at this point in the world to start looking at not the give and take, but the sacred reciprocity of it.
Yes.
The giving and the receiving.
Yes.
So that I don't work with takers at all at this point. Everyone in my world are giving and receiving in the sacred reciprocity. So that's the other thing I will say.
Absolutely. I actually want to say abso-fucking-lutely. Like, yes, yes, yes. I'm right there with you totally. And it's funny because my business coach, and I are working on a membership program for my business side. So my thing is very unique where I work direct to consumer with my retreats that I host. And then I have the business side plus my retreat center. So it's a little bit multi-pronged, but it's all in the same arena. So we are working on a membership for the business side, but I'm really loving the idea of a mastermind for my retreat guests that I serve, because I have hundreds and hundreds of them from the last, however many, 12 years, 10 years, something like that. It's 10 to 12 years. The COVID thing has got me thrown off because I took a couple years off. But anyway, so I just love this so much. Hey guys, I'm popping in to ask a quick question. Are you ready to elevate your marketing game and fill those retreat slots faster than ever? Of course you are. That's why you're here. And we've got the toolkit for you. Our top 5 marketing tools for retreat leaders guide. This isn't just a guide. It's your marketing guru wrapped up in one easy to follow package. Dive into the essentials of social media marketing, where we show you how to leverage those platforms to create a community buzzing with excitement for your retreats. Also, unleash the power of content marketing with strategies that educate and engage your potential guests. Plus, we'll dive into email marketing, SEO, and partnership opportunities that open new doors and bring in streams of attendees. So why wait to make your retreats the talk of the town? Download your free guide today by visiting retreatmarketingtools.com and start transforming your retreat dreams into reality. If someone wanted to work directly with you, by the way, we definitely have to have you back on the show because there's other topics that we talked about or you sent me and I researched and I just think would be excellent. But if somebody wanted to work with you on this, on building up the spiritual side of their business, just really understanding how they can continue to build their retreat business as well as, I love this, the after retreat business.
Yeah.
How would they do that?
Yes. Well, I have the C-suite. And the C-suite is for leaders they're coming out of mental health. So psychologists, counselors, and therapists who are moving into the coaching space. But there are also those like you who have multi-pronged approaches, right? They're still working in the corporate space, or they are, I will say, incognito with their gifts, and they are still leading from that place of being in the C-suite themselves. And so that's one of the ways that I work with people to be able to really cultivate their own businesses, their own philosophies, bring through their own technologies and so on in terms of their leadership development and the work that they do with the people. So that is one way. If somebody will like to work with me directly or just simply have a conversation with me, you can book a call with me. I still do complimentary consults. I think it's important to cultivate those conversations. And you can do that by going to drrobynmckay.com/call. And you get on my calendar. There is a brief assessment, but it's important for you to complete because I will evaluate that to make sure I can help. And if I can, we'll have your call and we'll have a session about what you will like to work on.
Awesome. I will have all of that linked in the show notes for anybody who's listening to this and they just want to click on the show notes. Or you can contact me and I'll forward you on to her, whichever way is easiest for you, because I know that a lot of people listen to this while they're driving or in the shower or whatever. So however it is, but thank you so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to have you back on the show so we can continue this conversation and just really continue to help people build a heart-forward business.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. Learn more at www.theretreatranch.com. See you next time.